but I'm asking.
And
what,
make this...
what do you think's driving the war?
Okay, I don't think that's...
You're telling me, it's because the world's going to end. That's what.
No, that's not my reason.
All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Men Used to Go to War podcast. And today we are talking about World War III.
Yeah, the question is, are we heading into World War III? Now, that is a scary question to ask, but a lot has been going on in the world, especially since we last recorded in the last, 1 or 2 months?
Yeah.
Feels like the world's gone on a very different trajectory, and it could continue to go in that way as well.
Yeah.
With recent events. Obviously, what we're referring to is the Middle East.
Yep. The whole situation with Iran.
Iran, Israel, the US, and obviously all other countries in that region that are involved. Now, obviously, we're from UK, but we could easily be pulled into it, and it could easily impact our lives as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think number one question is, how do you feel? Do you feel scared, anxious, angry? What's your general feeling about the whole situation?
I don't feel scared in any way. I just feel more in a sense of there's a bit of confusion to understand why is this happening in the world. Is it necessary?
Yeah.
Like in my personal life, I'm like I try to avoid conflict because I don't see the reason for it.
Yeah.
So what is the reason I'm rationalizing why these two countries are causing this instability in the world and affecting so many people's lives? So there's a bit of confusion, I would say, is the first thing, which we can maybe go into a bit later. There's a bit of overwhelm because there's so much information and you're bombarded with all of these videos, all of this news, all of these tweets. It's just like such doom and gloom. So there's a sense of overwhelm. I don't think as human beings we were made to process this much information all at once, because it's been quite constant. If you're thinking about not just this situation in isolation, kind of the last few years since COVID, Ukraine, Russia, cost of living, so forth, and then you've got your own personal problems to deal with. There's just a lot going on in the world.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of overwhelm from that point of view. And yeah, I guess anxiety in terms of what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
Is it going to spread further? Is it just going to end? Are countries going to start nuking each other? Where could it escalate towards? I think that is the real question.
Yeah. Okay.
How about you? How do you feel?
I feel angry. Firstly,
angry.
Just like it just feels all very unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like it is. It's just like this. It is down to Donald Trump, basically, isn't it? Really, he's basically given too much power and authority. It's an illegal war. He just decided to focus on Iran with the leader of Israel, and I'm just like, how has this man just got so much power to go and do this?
Yeah.
As well, going back to,
I think that's where my confusion comes from. Sorry, but the confusion of why do you think that you can just go into another country? Like, how are we in this place of like, I don't feel angry by it, but the same action makes me feel confused to be like, oh, you just think it's correct to do that? And I think we saw that with Venezuela as well, where it was like correct to just go in and take a president.
We spoke about it.
Yeah. And I think it's more of that, like, how is this like possible? Yeah. Like, where is this coming from? I think that's where my like ultimate confusion comes from. But yeah, I guess for you it makes you feel more angry to like paint this.
I'm trying to understand the reason behind it as well. Because, okay, so obviously there was issues within Iran and the government and the regime there. And there was mass protests not too long ago.
No, but to challenge that, it is not anyone else's job. It is not another country's job to police how another country is run.
I understand that.
If they're mass protesting, they should decide that for themselves and sort that out for themselves. And I also think that was a bit of that is a bit of a lie that we're told that they were mass protesting and that we need to go help them, because now that the war started, no one's really protesting. They were kind of calling on their people to overtake your
Yeah.
government. Like, I've seen the opposite. I've seen videos of people saying, like, why are they doing this? We don't
Yeah,
want
yeah,
this.
but then there was, yeah, on the other side is people were happy with the regime as well.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just like confused on why is it necessary to, why is it necessary for America to get involved? Then you got Netanyahu, who has been, there's videos circulating over the last 20, 30 years of him accusing the former leader of Iran of building nuclear weapons, and there's no evidence of that. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
this guy's been out for.
the chief commissioner of counterterrorism, he recently resigned because he didn't believe in what America was doing, and he went on the Tucker Carlson. Like, Tucker Carlson has a YouTube show,
Yeah.
and he kind of confirmed what you just said, that there was no indication that Iran had
Yeah.
a nuclear weapon,
Yeah.
and that it was a false, like, pretext.
Yeah,
And this is someone who was working in the Trump administration openly saying this recently.
Yeah. So
But I think it runs a lot deeper. And I think, obviously, one of the points that we're going to talk about later with is money driving this, what is actually driving this war. I think maybe we'll cover that.
yeah.
But yeah, it is the confusion and questioning of why is this happening, and
Yeah, there's so many
are we
questions
being
behind
told? I think the other thing just to touch upon quickly is that with all the previous wars that we've seen, across the Middle East since the early 2000s, post 9/11, I think it's built a lot of distrust in the government and what they tell the everyday people.
Yep.
And everyday people are becoming more aware to objectively, like, think for themselves. Whereas before, blindly, it was like, okay, we're going to war, we need to support this. People are actually standing back to be like, no, why are we going to war? Why?
What's the
What's the
reason behind
reason? Yeah,
this?
what's the reason behind it? And are we being told the truth? So I think that is a big thing that has been
Yeah.
questioned in a good way. But I guess directly, how is it impacting? Is it impacting your life in any way? You would say,
Not directly.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was a situation where my parents had to fly through Abu Dhabi on the way
Yeah.
home to India, and it was just more of a headache more than anything of trying to get new flights and everything sorted out. But directly, the only thing that has affected me is petrol prices. To be honest with you,
So cost of
the
living.
cost of living,
Which is-
and sorry, but obviously there's a cost of living crisis going on, and interest rates, inflation was all kind of coming back to a normal level, slowly coming back. But this war is just going to drive everything upwards, and it's going to be expensive for all of us, to be honest with you. And that's again where my anger comes from. I'm just like, life's very difficult for a lot of people right now, and being dragged into a war or wars being caused. Wars are expensive, basically, and actually, cost of everything is just going to increase, and it's just going to annoy me and frustrate me even more. That everything is just becoming more and more expensive. Another thing is, I feel like sometimes we're becoming like desensitized as well, because
with what I said about social media and just seeing,
yeah, because it's one thing after another, and like you got Ukraine, Russia, COVID, Palestine, everything, and
and that's not even to touch the surface of the things that you do see, like could be seeing things happening in London, things happening in certain parts of the world. There's like lots of stuff happening in like Sudan, Congo, places like that.
and just one thing after another, and you get into a situation where it's actually just another thing when it's actually much more serious than that. Actually, do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's not directly affecting my life, apart from the cost of living situation. What about yourself?
And I could counter some of the things that you said and put my tinfoil hat on and like be my typical conspiracy theorist.
Go on.
I don't think this stuff that's happening is like just random.
Okay.
I think I've always been in the world like these aren't just random events that are happening out of nowhere. I feel like the world is being taken in a certain direction that people who don't have our interest at the forefront are taking the direction in the world. For example, America being involved in the war, Israel lobbies America and has funded probably Donald Trump's campaign within there.
Yep.
So that is the pressure and tie that he has to then go support Israel's interests in the Middle East as well. And if Israel have this direction that they want to create in the Middle East, where they want to be the superpower in the Middle East, there's obviously support from America that is going to be linked to that, to take the direction of that geography in the way that they want it to be, even if we don't want that as people. And for them to do that, they need to have this war. I think even with things, I think life is meant to be more difficult for the everyday person, personally speaking, through the cost of living, through inflation, through wearing away the middle class.
Okay.
I think that the rich do want to get
Richer.
There's been the largest distribution of wealth since COVID between the poor and the rich, where the rich have gotten significantly richer.
Okay.
And the eradication of the middle class. Like, I don't want to go too deep into it, but I think in terms of how it's directly affecting us, it's easy to get kind of bogged down in the my bills are going up, my costs are going up. I think because I'm of the opinion that this is the way that they want it to go. The direction. I'm not trying to get the way I'm feeling like, I could be angry, I could be frustrated, but this is just a byproduct of the world. It might be quite cynical, it may be quite realistic, it might be quite pessimistic, but I also see it as being a realist, is that this is just a byproduct of the way people in control of the world want the society to go.
Yeah.
So going to where it's
I think
affecting
there's multiple counter arguments to that, especially with Keir Starmer, the Labour government, in charge, to be honest with you. But that's probably going.
I think one of the things I want to say,
a different direction that we want to go.
I think one of the facts that I actually had, which I was going to go on about later, but talking about the economy and cost of living.
Yeah.
So this, I believe it's been fact checked. Tesco's operating profit rose from about 1.8 billion in 2020/2021 to 3.1 billion in 2024/2025, right? Yeah. This is the period we've had a cost of living crisis, right? So that's roughly a 70% increase, yeah?
Yep.
At the same time, food prices rose 35 to 40% over a similar period. So profits for Tesco have risen faster than general food inflation in comparison.
Okay.
So their profits have increased beyond.
Sorry. Let me get the numbers right. So their profits have risen by how many percent?
70%.
70%.
But food price inflation has only increased by 35%.
Okay.
So they've obviously taken more profit than they should have.
Okay, but
they haven't increased their prices in line with food inflation.
But how is inflation measured though? Inflation is measured by your average food shop. So it's done from a Tesco store. So they must be doing something else to increase their profits.
Well, ChatGPT told me the general price of food has increased by 35%. Okay. And their profits have increased by 70%.
Then I think this is we're going to speak more about AI and how it changes the world in another episode. So I think that is another argument of you should be questioning what ChatGPT told you.
No, but in terms of questioning, it's been quite apparent that supermarkets in the UK are making record profits. But the questioning is how are they making record profits during a cost of living crisis? If supermarkets' costs were moving in line with general food inflation, their profits would remain the same, correct? As historical years. That is the argument they have. Their prices, obviously demand could impact that. But in general, if your profits are increasing by 70%, but general food and prices are increasing by only 35%, how have you made significantly much more profit?
Let me say my arguments on this point of view, right? So, inflation is basically measured by the average cost of a food shop, right? From 1 year to another. That's how they usually measure it. That is correct, yeah? So they will choose do it from an average of a number of stores. So actually, you're measuring it from inflation from the cost of the food, but also cost of living crisis, right? There are other reasons why your profit is going to increase. The demand is increasing. Let me finish, right? Demand is increasing because people can't afford to go out as often they used to. Go out for dinner less. They're staying in. They're drinking more at home, right? And
There
this is
is
all
that.
facts.
Yeah.
So they're going to go to Tesco's more often, and basically, it's the average person saying taking everything into uh, like at a similar base level inflation. So somebody who was spending £50 on their weekly shop is now actually buying more and more items, and their average shop is actually increasing to 75 to £100.
I
That's why they're
I think there is possibly that, but I think it's the sense of like the average cost. Say if a banana was used to be 50p, now it's like 70p to manufacture, to produce whatever. There's a 20p increase. Tesco haven't shifted their prices by an increase of 20p. They've done it in excess of 20p. That's where I feel it's coming from. And I feel like when you look at club card prices as well and no regular prices, some of the prices where things used to be and now where they are extortionately different.
yeah. No, don't get me wrong. Like there isn't.
I don't.
So
I just don't think supermarkets have moved their prices in proportion to costs. So if a cost of a banana or potato has increased by 25p, their prices haven't moved relatively to reflect that. They've gone above and beyond that to then make an extra profit, and I feel that is somewhat feeding into the numbers. I do agree with you. There's more demand for people to stay at home. They maybe buy more premium foods at home because they're less going out because they're going to cook a Tesco's finest steak at home rather than going to a restaurant. I do believe in that as well. But I just think the average cost of food has gone up by 30 to 40%. Their profits have gone up by 70 plus percent. That is a very significant increase, in my opinion. If they were doing what they wanted to do, and I feel the cost and their profit increases would be more broadly in line, is what I would say.
okay, no, there are questions around
The
obviously
ethical, I think it's the ethical,
the increasing
yeah,
pricing. There's also questions around oil prices and so
yeah.
forth. But yeah, I think we're again diverging onto another path. But like, yes,
I think it's more of the I think
I
going back to the
agree with
economy and
you.
inflation in
I
terms
agree
of,
with you at on some points, but
I don't,
there's more to
my
that than
underlying point is that corporations don't have the individual's best interest at mind. So they know there's a cost of living crisis. They're going to still continue. If they can use that to maximize their profits, they are going to use that. And
yeah,
that's what
yeah,
they're
no,
doing.
I agree
And
with
they
that.
are
Yeah.
masking it by, oh, it's a cost of living crisis. That's why you're paying more. If they know that they can scrape off another 10, 20% in margin and pass that on to the consumer, they're going to do that and maximize it because you're just being told by the media it is a cost of living crisis, so you have to just pay more. You're just being told it's a cost
Yeah,
of living crisis, so you need to pay more. I don't think they're ethically thinking.
but then actually, I think again, there's multiple points to this argument. You're basing this on that Tesco has a monopoly over the whole food industry. Then basically, when actually it's not just Tesco who are raising the prices.
There are other
It's
supermarkets,
every other
but
supermarkets.
they are
But
monopolies.
well, you got the big four, right? But what
Yeah,
about your local shops and so forth?
I mean, you can't. I wouldn't really compare.
But the price is still going up in your local shops. The
Yeah, of
price of
course.
chocolate bars are still
Yeah,
I think it's £1.50 for a chocolate bar the other day I saw.
yeah.
And but so
There's a term called greedflation or greed inflation.
but then again you got there's other arguments that their expenses and overheads are increasing as well.
So if you want to be Tesco's biggest brand ambassador, that is
I'm not,
this is
but
Tesco's. This is
I'm
their
just carrying your
yes.
argument because there's
So you don't think that they're taking the bit of a piss with us?
I do think that,
Okay.
but like your argument of like the 70% to 30%, I believe is there's other
There are other factors.
reasons why the
Yeah, of course.
profit is
I
going
do.
up.
It's not.
Yes,
It's not. They've made that biggest.
there is an
That
element
big
of,
discrepancy isn't just from them taking the piss.
but aren't there? Okay, so I'm trying to relate back to like the insurance company. We had it was an internal thing that we would only set like a maximum profit allowance on a customer. Do you know what I mean? Our loss ratios, basically. But so I'm just trying to think if there's kind of a regulatory
There
board
isn't.
system within the UK that actually controls
And
the
also with
prices and
insurance
profits.
companies, with car insurance, for example, it's so much more competitive because customers are going to be shopping around for the cheapest price. Whereas if Tesco, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, if they all increase their prices in a like similar trend, it's very much of them the same. You're not going to think, oh, let me leave Tesco to then go drive to Sainsbury's and then go get something from here.
Yeah, but
Whereas when you're online doing car insurance, it's a lot easily.
you do that
I feel like
once
we're
in
going a
a
bit down a rabbit hole,
yeah,
but let's
definitely.
keep it moving.
Okay, cool. Let's go on to the next question. So, what is the next question?
I guess part of this whole what's going on in the world is the social media commentary around it. One person that's been at the kind of forefront, I don't know, you haven't seen him as much as I have, but is someone called Professor Jiange,
Yeah, can you spell that for me?
Jiang.
Okay, tell me. I've only briefly kind of heard of him, but
Yeah.
for our listeners who haven't heard of him, go on, give some more
I
detail.
guess
And
he's a
who is this
Canadian.
guy?
He's a Canadian Chinese lecturer. Over the last year, he's got famous on social media, mainly on short form on TikTok and also on YouTube doing longer form. He started a YouTube channel called Predictive History, where it's kind of in the name of using history to predict the future.
Okay.
And he's amassed over like 2 million subscribers on YouTube. He's been on prominent news channels in the US. And the most, I guess, notable reasons is because before Trump came into power in America, he made three big predictions, and two of them have come right. So the first prediction is that before the 2024 US election, that Trump is going to return to power. He got that right. He also, at that same time, made a prediction that US and Iran are going to go to conflict, which, in my opinion, no one really saw on the horizon, especially under Trump's Trump was so, oh, I've stopped wars, I'm not going to war, we waste
Very
money going to war.
anti-war,
He's very
yes.
anti-war, so it's like saying that seemed a bit outrageous, but he's actually predicted that correctly. And his last one that potentially he's going to get right or not is that the US is going to lose or they're going to have to withdraw from the Middle East. So he's got 2 out of 3. And I think just to touch upon, he does these basically lectures to a class. So say if we're in a class, he's got a board, he's like lecturing them on different, not just the Iran and US conflict, many different things about the world, about history and how it's using to predict the future.
But does he go on to give any kind of reasoning of why he's making these
Yeah,
predictions?
he obviously has his own reasons and he talks about history. A lot of his lectures are based on things like to do with game theory. I'm not too very well versed in it, but he uses history and kind of analytical kind of proven structures to rationalize this is happening in the world and this is why it's going to go. He feels it's going to go happen in this direction, and he's getting a lot of traction in the especially in the last few months when news outlets started seeing that he made these predictions. Two out of 3 of them were correct, and he's gained like his videos are getting so many views now.
Okay. I think that's quite interesting, but yeah, I think I will have a look because to be honest with you, I want to know the reason why he's making these predictions. Like, what is his thought process of why America would lose and so forth.
I guess from what I've watched is I guess the reason why I think he believes America is going to lose because they just got dragged into the war because of Israel. They misinterpreted, misunderstood what this war would take from them, and they just don't have the strength and power to fight it, and nor do the population have the support towards the war in the same way that they did historically, and that they'll have to withdraw from the Middle East, and it'll make them look quote unquote weak. But obviously, he talks about things like the petrodollar and obviously how oil is traded globally in USD. China has kind of challenged that by
trying to make deals in yen.
Trying to make deals in yen, and there's an investment there. There's also a case that he makes at the fact that the US buys oil from the the GCC countries, the Gulf states. The Gulf states then use that money to reinvest into the US stock market and the US economy. That is what essentially is keeping it afloat.
Okay.
So obviously the US has an interest there where if they don't support those countries, the investment back into the US is going to materially drop and it's going to affect the US economy. He talks about very interesting things. He talks about how he kind of also opened my eyes to the fact that in the Middle East that they have these things called desalination plants where they have to take salt water and convert it into fresh water because they don't have enough natural water that they
Okay, yeah.
produce. And obviously Iran, if they hit these desalination plants, these countries are going to start going without water. They're going to start going out basic things like this. So he kind of talks about I think he talks about different angles of how this impacts the
It's quite smart
area.
though. Like, actually, I never realised. Obviously, like now you think about it, it makes sense because basically Dubai, Abu Dhabi, it's built in deserts.
Yeah.
So they're not going to have a lot of natural water. So yeah, they
They don't have rivers there, like they can just get fresh.
Yeah. So like,
They
they
have
don't
to
have, so they have to take water from the ocean, clean that, remove the salt. So actually, if they try to hit that kind of
infrastructure, then those people start having water, there starts being famines, there starts being, he kind of talks about where this war could go. It's very interesting. I'll send you some links. I'll put some maybe in the bio if anyone wants to, watch. But at the same time, social media is social media. It doesn't mean that this guy is factually correct.
yeah.
I think it's something to think about.
Yeah, definitely. I think I will take some time and see what he has to say. To be honest, yeah.
Yeah.
But then I think that brings us back onto the next point. What is the kind of
What is driving the war?
But you got to take your
money.
tinfoil hat off. Okay.
No, why?
Okay, go on. Actually, go on then.
What is driving the war?
Yeah, what's driving the war? What is your...
There's different angles to
opinion?
it. There's different angles to it. There's even from a religious sense. There's from the from a religious sense in, I believe, from my understanding, in scripture, in Judaism, in Islam, that the final days are here, and this is what it kind of looks like in their religious scripture. This is how it looks like for them.
Okay.
I can't go into more detail, but people have spoken about, people who I know who are
doomsday?
Muslim, and yeah, that they believe we are in the final stages of, I don't know if it's called doomsday, but the day of judgment is the way they call it. There's a religious sense to this for Jewish people and Muslim people going to war as well. It's a very religious, there's a religious angle of it that's driving it as well.
Different religions have been at war for
Yeah,
centuries.
exactly.
So what is it now that the world's going to come to an end?
There's, in their religious scripture, there's certain signs.
So do you think... So
I'm not going to go into it and say I think yes or no, but I'm just saying that there's what is driving this war. There's different senses. There's a historic, maybe like a Jewish people feel that the land and that region is all theirs.
Do you know how
they want to rise? I think there's Professor Jiange talks about it's called Pax Judaic. I don't know how to pronounce it, but basically they feel like that their Messiah is going to rise again and they're going to build this temple and he's going to come save the world. There is people who believe that within religion and scripture.
I understand that, but I'm asking.
And
what do you think is driving the war?
Okay, I don't think that's
you're telling me it's because the world's going to end. That's what.
No, that's not my reason. But I'm just trying to give a holistic viewpoint firstly before going into.
Okay, cool.
Because like there are some people who believe like it's coming from a religious sense. There's some people who maybe believe it's about money. There's some people who believe it's about using AI to create mass surveillance on our daily lives. It could be a social credit system that we live in.
Okay.
I don't know what they define as that actually looks like, but I feel that is my theory on why it's going this way. It's not for the better of everyday people, essentially.
Okay.
What about yourself?
Why
do you think it's happening? So I think there's multiple factors at play here.
I think there's multiple factors at play here. So basically, uh, Netanyahu wants control over the Middle East. He wants he wants control of the Middle East, as you just said.
So we agree on that.
We agree on that. But obviously, he needs America as an ally to help him, fund the war and so forth. So he's gone to his old mate Donald Trump. He's probably always been whispering in his ear, and then Donald was like, actually, you know what? I need a distraction from the Epstein files because I've been mates with old Jeffrey for quite a while, to be honest with you. So he was like, you know what? Actually, yeah, go on. Let's start this war. I need to distract the American public from what's being going to be from what's in the Epstein files. Also,
wasn't Jeffrey Epstein to be a Mossad agent?
I have no idea about that.
Well, there's a theory of that, but yeah.
Okay, right. But then the other thing is oil as well. He invaded, he kidnapped the Venezuelan president, prime minister, for oil.
Yeah.
He's doing the same in Iran as well. So it's under the disguise of, kind of changing the regime, but actually main drivers are oil, and I think also he just needs a distraction, to be honest with you, from becoming like just president now. He is commander in chief, isn't he? Like he's trying to be in the same kind of spoken in the same light as kind of Winston Churchill and a leader of difficult times and in war.
So you think it's like from his narcissistic point of view, where he wants to be remembered in history as this chief and commander?
I think that's probably another view as well, to be honest with you. So I can't pinpoint one exact reason why, but I think
just resource and global dominance over that region.
Global dominance over the region, natural resources, his narcissistic view of him wanting to be kind of seen as a leader and a great president, and also as a distraction from the Epstein files. So I think
I think he's compromised. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think there is something to do with that. I think it's something to do with Israeli influence in American politics.
Yeah, definitely.
And because it is well known that they do fund American politics, they do lobby. There is a connection there. I think there are theories how Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent. There's some wild theory that people around Trump are like Mossad agents not controlling him.
Yeah. All right.
But they are having that influence over him indirectly. It's not a reason to rationalize what he's doing.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's wrap that up anyway. So actually, listeners, thank you for joining us.
If you have any comments, if you have any conspiracy theories, if you have any tinfoil moments, please.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear people's views. So
put them in the comments.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.